Welcome back. David Hertel in for Elias. Well, we've been talking about this all week. The Hockey Canada scandal that keeps growing almost by the minute as we get more revelations about this after a parliamentary committee hearing that revealed that a lot of aspects of this gang rape by reportedly 8 Team Canada members seem to have been swept under the rug in some way by Hockey Canada. That raises a lot of legal issues, legal questions, wondering how something like this can be handled. And I thought it would be a good idea to get a legal perspective, and happy to be joined by Ari Goldkind, criminal defense lawyer and legal analyst. Ari, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Great to be with you, David.
So, Ari, I'll just start with just a big general question here. I mean, when you heard these revelations this week as a criminal defense attorney, what was like your first reaction?
That there's some really bad reporting, some really bad headline writing, some really bad, spin of it. I'm sorry. I don't accept this notion that 8 young men are all rapists now because there's a scandal going on that Parliament is using for their own things. We don't know what happened. The young woman didn't want to speak to police. Not one of these 8 young men have been charged with a single thing. I don't care if that's unpopular on Twitter, which I call anti-social media. The fact that she hasn't spoken to the police may be a reflection of many things in this day and age. But the idea that I'm even supposed to call it a gang rape, I'm sorry. I'm not prepared to call 8 young men rapists at this point in their life. And that's not a criminal defense lawyer point of view. That's somebody who lives in a democracy that is supposed to be liberal, where we don't tar and feather this young man. You see the NHL and all these other people coming out and presuming them guilty. There's a lot more to this story, I think, than meets the eye. And as people often say, David, I'll end my answer on this part here. People say, well, the criminal justice system is not a great place for sexual assault complainants or cases to go, whether it be Headley, whether it be Gomeshi, name your high profile.
Sure. We've had our share here in Quebec as well.
And I've covered them with you and Elias and many others. And the point of it is, that's fine and dandy to say, but when you have somebody that doesn't even want to speak to the police, takes a settlement, that we don't know the truth, we don't know what's been admitted or not. All we have is conjecture and people piling it on to try and look good, and virtue signal, and politicians taking time out of their busy creating inflation wrecking Canada weeks to try and pretend they know what happened in that hotel room. As a criminal defense lawyer, as a citizen, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to call these 8 young men rapists without knowing more.
So but again, is there something in the way then? Let's say I'm following your reasoning, and you're right. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a criminal attorney, not at all. But I understand what you're saying. It is true. There's no finding of fact here. We don't have all the facts. We don't have anything from a legal perspective to come to any sort of conclusion on the criminal side, for sure. All we know is there was a settlement, but we don't know what's in the settlement except the dollar amount. But the way Hockey Canada handled this, again, so how, if you would have been in the room to prep the Hockey Canada guys that testified in Ottawa, how would you have handled the way they present it? Because there are a lot of issues also with the way Hockey Canada has handled this, and also the way they've presented themselves to the public.
Well, one, the apology routine in tour never works, okay? That's like throwing chum in the water to a shark, okay? There's nothing you can say to people that make livings and benefit, and I'm not saying this specific case, in general to any issue. If you believe that you've done the right thing, if you believe you've respected the wishes of the young lady, okay? I don't know her name. Maybe it's been reported. I don't think it has.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Right, but this is where my answer is going. She was represented by counsel. this settlement didn't happen by itself. She probably had excellent and very well-known counsel. I didn't look up who it is, but I guarantee you it wasn't well, I'm not going to make that joke. But the point is, yeah, you can figure out what the joke is, but I'm not going to make it.
Yes.
But she didn't call Saul, okay? That's as far as I'll go with it.
Okay, okay.
So the point of the story is, we don't know what she wanted. We don't know what the 8 versions of events from the young men, if they were even asked a question, were talked. They can't be compelled. At the end of the day, the term witch hunt is what comes to my mind. If you think you've done the right thing through legal counsel, and that this young woman didn't want this all to be public, didn't want to be made famous, wanted to have a settlement, we don't know what went on in that room. So whether you're a criminal lawyer like me, or a lawyer like you, or quite frankly, any one of your listeners, okay? There has to be some kind of due process where allegations are tested before we start assuming everybody did everything wrong. And I'll tell you this, David, when everything that was done through high-priced lawyers and lots of negotiations and back and forth, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to accept, without knowing more, I emphasize this, David, without knowing more, I am not prepared to accept that a ton of lawyers at very high hourly rates didn't know what they were doing and didn't try to do justice that they thought would be appropriate in the moment. And again, to the people who say, well, we should know the names of all these 8 guys, some of them in the NHL now. Well, wait a minute. We don't know her name. They're going to be tarred and feathered now, and we don't know what, if anything, they did, and there's no avenue for them to clear their name. I'm sorry, there's just something about all of this that I find somewhat unseemly. Not what happened, but how the fallout is being dealt with in this day and age where somehow the courtroom of public opinion and anti-social media dominates what I call the truth-seeking process, which clearly all of these lawyers were live to.
Speaking of criminal defense lawyer Ari Goldkind. Ari, so let me take it from another angle.
Of course, play devil's advocate.
No, it's not. No, look, this is about bringing out all different points of view. So I respect your point of view, and I'm not here to defend a particular point of view. I'm just looking at it. Yes, I am a lawyer, but I'm also a former politician. So I'm looking at it from a point of view that, one, there was no criminal complaint, as far as I understand. Mm-hmm. There was no police report. There was nothing.
Didn't want to speak to the police.
That's right. And so there was no complaint. And so, but as it is her right, you can go the civil route to get compensation, which she has done. Now, Hockey Canada gets money from taxpayers. And so when you hear about, a 3.3 or 3.2, I forget the exact amount, $1 million settlement, obviously you can have public agencies, government agencies, asking questions about where public money is going. That's a fair question. So 100%. Then I get the 7-10 split you're describing, because at the one hand, a settlement is not an admission of guilt, or even can not necessarily be an admission of responsibility, on the civil side. But at the same time, how do we get to a point where there can be accountability and we can say, hold on a second, there's something that doesn't smell right with the way Hockey Canada has handled this? Isn't there something there where there can be some valid question being raised?
Look, you're talking to the guy who says everything in Ottawa should be transparent. When you look at Mendocino's performance in the Emergencies Act debacle.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Right. So trust me, I could do an hour with you on that,
sure.
Including commercials on that.
Love to.
With asking questions. The question that comes to me as a lawyer is, what would people have Hockey Canada do differently? If you actually posed that question, what would you have them do differently? Because none of it seems to involve what were the wishes of this young woman. And if anybody who's belly aching about any of this has a modicum of interest in any of this, first part of the segment, the hearings, the questioning, has to be, what were her wishes? Does she want the 8 men named? Does she I could go on further, but we don't have time because you probably have to hit a break.
I do.
But the point, yeah, right. So I'm live to that. So the point of it is we don't have the information to suggest what Hockey Canada did wrong. There are a million reasons settlements happen. I can tell you a million. And by the way, this is no different than situations where the Montreal taxpayer or the Quebec taxpayer or the federal taxpayer pays millions of dollars to people as a result of police actions or other actions. We don't know why. We don't know how the sausage is made. They're sealed. That's the whole point of a confidential settlement. And I'm sorry, it doesn't make me erode trust in Hockey Canada. And if it would, somebody needs to tell me something more. I'm not throwing those 8 young men under the bus without knowing more. There's reasons that it would have settled without any of them even being guilty of a single criminal offense. Not that they've ever been charged, not that she's spoken to the police.
Well, Ari, I'm going to have to leave it at that, but we just learned that the government of Canada has just frozen Hockey Canada's public financing. So
doesn't surprise me for 1 second.
Definitely more to come on that topic. Ari, appreciate your candidness on this issue. Thanks for joining us.
David. Thank you, David.
All right, take care. Ari Goldkind is a criminal defense lawyer and legal analyst.